Hi, I'm Chike Coleman, that's Sanford Hess, and welcome to Real Reviews at Home Edition. This week, we are going to be reviewing the movie The Way Back, starring Ben Affleck. But we're also going to be talking about the crisis at the movies. Are movie theaters dying? The new VOD description model that's come from uh, Universal Pictures, as well as Walt Disney Studios, in which they release some films that were on their slate of films for the year on video on demand early. How is that affecting the industry? Will we lose movie drive-in theaters and movie theaters in general? That's going to be our topic for today. But first, let's talk about The Way Back. This film stars Ben Affleck as a I don't want to call him a bumbling because bumbling is not really it. Almost a barely functioning alcoholic, let's say. And he is
I'm actually going to say a highly functional alcoholic because, I mean, he's integrated his alcoholism into his day-to-day life.
yeah, it's definitely a routine for him. Um, he's basically I say barely functioning because he kind of just goes through the motions with everyone. Um, and you learn why later. But essentially, he gets a call from the father of his old high school. Is that fair to say? Would we call that a high school?
Well, when you say the father, it's a Catholic school, so yes,
Right,
yes, his old Catholic school, high school, yeah, yeah.
right. So because of the seeing his father, uh,
Not
I'm
his
sorry,
father, but the
pastor
priest.
father,
Yeah,
yeah, priest.
yeah.
That's what I was looking for. Because of meeting with the priest and basically making sure to answer this guy's call, uh, we learned that Ben Affleck's character was a star basketball player for his school team. Due to this, the priest, again, I almost said father, the priest asked Mr. Cunningham to coach the team. Now, the film looks and sounds like it's going to be one of those inspirational basketball films, and it sort of is, but it's also entirely not that. It's a man rebuilding his life, and I think that's what I really enjoyed most about the film. But the fact that it doesn't completely go for the full redemption arc makes it more enjoyable to me. This is the most honest, raw, emotive performance I've ever seen Ben Affleck give in his entire movie career. And I think he should be commended for that. I think the thing that's most interesting to me within this film isn't his relationship to drinking, but it's his relationship with everyone else around him, his family, how he talks to the players, how he coaches them and guides them, what he picks up on as he starts to believe in this team, regardless of how well they succeed or how much they fail. Um, there is a reason why he drinks, and we learn what that reason is, and I don't want to spoil that because it's it's the crux of the film where I don't want to make apologies for him, but his drinking almost begins to make complete sense at that point. I feel like this is a performance where Ben Affleck, not to say that he doesn't have range, but he truly gets to, in a way, confront his own dark past with alcohol and show how not only as an actor but as a character you can push forward and move to be better, even if he doesn't make all the right choices all the time. And for that reason, I truly I have a deep like for this film. I don't love it. I like it. Sanford, what did you think of The Way Back?
Well, I'm going to agree with you. I mean, I think one of the best parts about this movie was that it refused to stick to the inspirational sports movie stereotype. Because there have been a lot of movies like that.
Mm-hmm.
The scrappy team gets the coach and they start winning, and and actually one of the things that I liked about the movie from the start of it once things sort of got going on the basketball aspect, was
Hmm.
that they didn't spend the time showing us the basketball games.
No, they just showed us the score, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, I did too. I just thought it was a very good way to quickly move the game, move the story along without spending a lot of time in the games. So I really appreciated that. And then I appreciated, like, you teased it there a little bit, but this movie refuses to go for that inspirational happy ending. And in fact, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a plot spoiler here. One of the best things about this movie, I thought, was the ending, in the way that they don't even focus on what happens in the final game.
Nope, doesn't matter.
Right. So I like that. I like this movie's refusal to play by that set of rules. But at the same time, I will say it was really weird to watch somebody who's gone through such public alcoholism, problems in his own personal marriage, and and his own battle for sobriety, to go through that on film. That must have been very strange to film. But I also found the ending a little too trite, in the way that he just sort of wound up with this, it almost became at the end like an advertisement for AA. Oh, I've acknowledged my sins. I'm apologizing to my ex-wife. I am finally coming to grips with how I failed everybody. And a new day is dawning. And so that part of it actually felt a little flat. I like what they were doing in terms of focusing on the fact that ultimately this movie is really about this one man's battle for sobriety, and not so much a movie about basketball, which is easy to overlook when you see the trailer or anything else about it. I like that.
Right.
But the ending just felt a little too pat on that. I kind of would prefer almost a more muddled ending, I think, in a way, just because really, and interestingly, I read an interview with Ben Affleck just the other night, because I was kind of curious about this aspect of it.
Hmm.
And in the interview, he was much more of the frame of mind that, hey, sobriety is a day-to-day fight. It's not, you turn a corner and you're there. It's every day, all day, battling your demons. And I felt like if the movie had gotten maybe a little closer to that, I would have liked the ending a little more.
I mean, it's weird because I agree with you. I feel like they focus on that day-to-day battle all throughout the film, and then at the end they just kind of let it go. So I can definitely see where your trite criticism comes in. Like, my personal preference for how the movie should have ended is him in the hospital bed, surrounded by his family, apologizing, but then being like, well, where do I go from here? I want him confused. I want to not know where his journey is going to end up. And instead, they give us probably the cleanest ending possible.
Right. The only thing that would have been cleaner or more pat would have been, him hearing on the radio that the team had won the big championship or something like that. So I was glad they didn't do that. But at the same time, yeah, this movie had, I don't know, maybe at the end, I like your idea of having him sort of surrounded by people, but maybe at the same time, him just going back to his day-to-day life like the movie started, and sort of showing him having to deal with on a day-to-day level what it's like to be sober. So maybe the movie would have.
Yeah, showing that different path. So now you've shown the alcoholism and how it affects him. Now show what sobriety and the fear of sobriety looks like.
Right. I don't know, but hey, let's talk about the other aspects of this film for a second. So first of all, this movie to me had a very interesting visual style.
Mm-hmm.
I was struck by, for example, there's some early scenes where they showed the repetitive nature of his life, and I kind of said that earlier, how alcoholism is really embedded in his lifestyle early in the movie. And, one scene that really struck me was the scene where he's taking the beers out of the fridge,
I
and
was
he's
hoping
got
you were going
this,
to mention that.
Yeah, he's got this, sort of pattern of putting the beer in the freezer, and then he takes the beer that was previously in the freezer.
Can I give our audience context for that?
Yeah, sure,
Um,
sure.
so to set up the scene, he's been offered the position of head coach for his high school by the priest, and he's thinking about all the different ways he can turn the priest down. So you see him take a can of beer out of the fridge, put it in the freezer, open up another fresh can from the freezer that was previously in the freezer, drink that can, and then just do this repetitive cycle of drink, freeze, drink, freeze, drink, freeze, all the while becoming more and more drunk, with coming up with more and more defiant ways to say no to the job. And what I love about that scene isn't showing the repetitive nature, it's what happens the next day.
Which, to be honest, it didn't entirely. There wasn't really a creditable sort of moment in the film where they explained why the next day he took the job.
Agreed, and that's what I like. It's messy. You don't know. You don't get to understand why he made that decision.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm with you on that. I always respect a movie that kind of says, hey, look, this is a character's inner life. I'm not going to have them sit and debate it with themselves verbally, although there's a little bit of that going on. But really, it's him practicing his speech, turning it down. But, and this credits Ben Affleck's performance. It's him practicing the speech, turning it down, but not convincing himself.
Right. And I think, for lack of a better term, there's so much subtlety in how all of this is handled. And that's part of the reason why I like this film. It's not going to heavy-handed smack you in the face with how alcoholism and being an alcoholic works. It's showing you piece by piece how this person functions and how this person's dysfunctional.
Right. No, this movie was, to me, very, and it felt authentic in terms of displaying what his alcoholism is like, because it was it was a certain sense of, hey, it's automatic. He leaves work and he pops a beer and then he heads to the bar and he has a few more beers. And then by the end of the night, he's somebody else is driving him home because he's too wrecked to drive. And I think it was a very moving and authentic way to display how this alcoholism can just take over your life. And then, then even as the movie progresses near the beginning, we start to see that, oh, he's not just drinking after work. He's actually drinking in the morning. He's actually drinking on the job. And, it's scary, but that does go on and people are doing that. And of course he was doing, bridge construction. So that also is scary by itself. So.
And the other thing I wanted to mention with this film very quickly is the dialogue is great.
Yeah, I especially liked his relationship with his ex-wife. That felt believable.
The ex-wife felt believable. The relationship with the sister felt believable.
Yeah. The relationship with the kids, he was pretty good. I felt like, though, that one of the areas it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of characters, but the kids were kind of one-dimensional.
Chuck have the same opinion on that. With kids.
There were one or two. I thought probably the only character who you saw any arc in was the center who he kicked off the team, who comes to his door to ask to be back on the team. There was a scene there where the actor playing that kid actually had a chance to show some emotion, and I thought he did a pretty good job. He really, you believe, he first he was making an excuse about how his mom wants him to do something after school, and then he sort of let it out that no, he really wanted to be back. And that part was one of the few parts where I felt like, the kids on the team actually contributed to the movie's acting.
I agree. I was actually talking about his nephew.
Oh, yeah. Well, he only really had a couple of scenes. Yeah.
I know, but that was where I thought, the kids, and I hate to use this term, used a lot of, basic trash talk urban dialogue most of the time. You didn't really get a feel for them as people, and that may be, for me, what the one negative of the film was. Not to make it more of a basketball movie, but give these kids dimension because they're going through a lot. It's high school after all.
Right. Right. I mean,
Um,
and if anything, the only part of the movie that was sort of dwelled on the kids was how much they cursed, which was kind of surprising for kids at a Catholic school. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not a teenager. I'm not at Catholic school, so I don't know how that goes these days.
and can we pinpoint how hilarious it is that Jack Cunningham cursed all the time and the faculty didn't bat an eye? They're like,
Well, the team chaplain, I thought that was actually one of the better moments was when the team chaplain kind of took him off to the side and sort of said, hey, look, I mean, and I thought it kind of teed up a moment. I was expecting there to be a payoff later, but there wasn't as much. The chaplain sort of said, hey, you don't know how much these kids look up to you. You got to really control yourself. And then he never did after that. None of the kids really looked up to him.
yeah.
So there
Well,
you go.
I do recommend it. You had we both spent $20 to watch this film. Do you think it's worth that price?
Well, I watched it with my wife. So when you divide it by two, it's the cost of what it would be to see in a theater. So how about this? So, wow, this is a tough calculus. I think if you have 3 or 4 people, I could justify $20 or wait for a few weeks and it'll come down in price to like $7 or $8.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, this movie does not jump to the top of the list in terms of, run out and see it. You got to see this movie kind of films for me.
I don't disagree with you. It's a good movie, and it's unexpectedly good, but it's not great.
Right.
I would say that people should see it, but when they have free time and when it's much cheaper as well.
Yes. So speaking of it being expensive.
Yeah, less expensive than that. Like we need a $7 version of that movie.
Right.
On our Xfinity platforms.
But I mean, I think so. That's to tee up the second half of our discussion. That's really the key thing. Is here we are sitting at home, being able to watch for $20 or whatever a movie that is theoretically still in its theatrical release. And that is a massive turning point in the theatrical distribution model. Which
we really actually addressed previously in the 10th anniversary episode of the show. We didn't see this coming at all. Well, you might have. I didn't personally see the VOD model churning out to new movies in movie theaters. I mean, because there was more than just The Way Back. There's The Invisible Man. There's the Trolls sequel, Trolls World Tour. You've got movies like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which we discussed earlier in 2019, is making its way to Hulu because it's not going to get that time for a theatrical release. So what do you feel like the impact of this is? Do you think it's going to be an ongoing thing, or do you think it's just a temporary fix until theaters can get up and running again?
No, I think this is a point of no return. I think we've turned a massive corner in the theatrical distribution market because so starting around 2008, 2009, 2010, you started to see some, and Magnolia was one of the first distributors I can remember that they were doing what in the biz we call day and date video release. In other words, the same day it was launched in the theaters, it was also available at home. And you were seeing that only on a handful of smaller films from, again, just a handful of distributors. And the theatrical, the theater owners had enough sway still to hold back on that from the major companies, the Disneys and the Universals. But now all bets are off. And, I think that once this cat is out of the bag and Disney is realizing that they can release Onward, is that the latest Pixar one, that they can release it to the home and pump it out through their Disney Channel and charge people whatever they're charging. I'm not even sure what they're charging for it.
$10 a month.
How much?
10.
But no. But is Onward free as part of their?
Yeah.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
See, yeah, right there. That, I mean, that's even worse because now Disney is basically saying, "Hey, we're going to give up the revenue we would have seen in the theaters from Onward, but we're going to make that back by getting people to sign up for this monthly fee for Disney Plus." And whether other distributors have their own specific channels for that, or whether they get in on something like Hulu or or whatever, or Amazon, where they can, you can dump it in Amazon and still charge money on top of the Amazon Prime membership. I
Yeah.
just think this is it. I think we have crossed the line, and there will still be, I mean, after this, after the stay at home is over, some movie theaters will reopen, and there will still be some movies that are released that way. But I think you'll see more and more movies that are released simultaneously to the home along with the theaters, and some movies that are just simply not released to theaters at all that would have been released to theaters in the past. What do you
See,
think?
I don't. This is the one point I don't agree with you on, because the thing about movie theaters, other than being a communal experience, because you're looking at households now. How many households realistically have the cable or the internet capabilities to continually spend, as you said, $20 a pop, $15 a pop for a movie?
Right.
Um,
But if it's the Disney model where it's part of the monthly fee, and then that's just something that you get.
yeah, but I don't think that other companies have that much sway. They could probably initiate it to the point that they could, but
Yeah.
I don't think that they have that much sway. And they need, more than anything, they need marketing and they need word of mouth, like lots of word of mouth. And that's why when a movie is released on a specific day at a movie theater and it makes 30, $40 million for, a Friday, Saturday viewing, that the studios are severely happy, because then they're like, okay, we now know this movie is gaining a lot of traction and we can push theaters to, have it more. But when you're looking at a VOD model of sending out newer movies that people have not heard of, that people haven't seen the trailers for, because that's the other thing, is that movie theaters run trailers of these films so that
Right.
people know what to expect without actually having those models of marketing within the movie theater model, and having to do it just releasing it on VOD because word of mouth has been strong. Companies are not going to make that much money off of it.
Well, they're making the money. I mean, they're making the money in different ways. With theatrical release, yeah, they were making the money on the first weekend of a Star Wars and Avengers kind of thing, but they were also, they're making money on all the side, the toys and the advertising stuff that would go on as well. So as long as they can still figure out a way to do that, I see them sticking with it. But maybe if this starts taking, like you said, if this starts taking away from the buzz factor of films, because you do kind of lose. I mean, there could still be a release date of the new Spider-Man movie, for example,
Right.
and it's available in homes and theaters on this date. You could get the buzz factor, but I mean, I agree with you. I think in the long term, what's going to happen is that they're going to see less money from films, and what that's going to lead to is less spending on films. And I think you're already seeing that more of the money that might have been spent sometimes on some movies is being pushed into these TV shows, because some of the TV shows these days have budgets equal to, small movies I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sorry, per episode,
Yeah.
per episode. I don't know what Stranger Things costs per episode or what Game of Thrones costs per episode, but it was close to a movie probably every time.
Yeah. I would say easily 10 or 12 million.
Yeah, and then plus also the fact that you get, if you get into the third or fourth or fifth year of a TV series, the actors start to demand more money, because it's kind of like the Simpsons cast. I mean, you can't, I mean, they could demand so much money because they were necessary to keep the show going, and and
Mhm.
that's animated voices. let alone something like Game of Thrones. It's not like you can just change out all the actors in between one year to the other. So I don't know. I mean, I just my sense of things is that there will be more and more that is released directly to the home, less and less of an emphasis on the theatrical distribution model. And I think people are going to continue after this to watch, not necessarily from fear of getting sick, but the dollars. I mean, yeah, my wife and I spent $20 to watch The Way Back, but if we were going to the theater, and I'm not a popcorn person, but if it was two of us plus tickets plus popcorn and soda, you're probably dropping $40 right there.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I'll say is that movie studios are going to get smarter about when and how they release films. The big studio films, like, for example, No Time to Die, there's a reason that they haven't put out a new date yet. They're waiting for that one moment when President Trump says, okay, sheltering in place is over, we've developed a cure, where they can get the maximum amount of money from that film because it's a tentpole film.
Right.
Tentpole films, I feel like, will still be released in theaters. And I don't know whether you'll like or love this next bit, what I'm about to say, but movie theaters are going to become independent movie houses. That's how I see that working. And all the other movies that we don't really care about or have much sway with in terms of how much we like or dislike them are going to be just non-essential VOD releases. But I will tell you that this VOD model does not just relate to movies and movie theaters. It also affects one other market that I find very, very interesting.
What's that?
And that is theater festivals. I read a report the other day that South by Southwest films, if the director chooses to, can release their films on Amazon Prime for a set price. You, as an Amazon Prime member, I believe, can view those films that are released at South by Southwest.
Yes, that is going on. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, maybe we should come back to that next time on the next episode.
I think that's an excellent idea, Sanford. So if you all have any thoughts or opinions, feel free to contact UPTV6 and let us know what you think about this new subscription model that's being released. Sanford and I won't always be at home, but for the remainder of the duration of this quarantine, we will be coming to you from our own separate little private studios. And until then, we'll see you at the movies. Bye, guys.